Hello all, welcome to the Clean Water series with Proline Fittings. I'm your host, Justin Giroux. Now, in spirit of keeping things unique and fresh, I'm really excited about this week's episode. I'm interviewing a couple of guys, industry professionals who decided to start their own business and their own podcast called the Talking Apes, an industry podcast. Welcome, Vresh and Jeff, to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Justin?
Thanks, Justin.
Pretty good. How are you guys? How are you guys doing?
It's not too bad. I mean, fall is falling upon us, so I feel like the September blues are hitting pretty hard. But outside of that, I think things are going very well.
We're in Calgary. It's so sunny.
Yeah, I guess
Forget it.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Those long evenings there.
from wet sunshine Vancouver, so this is great so far.
Yeah.
So you guys, we know each other from a previous life, and when I lived out west, I managed a wholesale company, and you guys both, we interacted, you guys being manufacturers representatives and me being the manager of the wholesaler. And then I moved out east here and joined Proline Fittings. It's been fantastic with Proline and starting this Clean Water series. And next thing you know, I sort of reconnected, and I think it was LinkedIn, you guys popped up. And lo and behold, you've started a business, started this cool podcast, totally industry specific, right during a pandemic. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
Well, it was funny. We actually started a business to help contractors with recognition in the industry, right? So people who were future leading, stuff like that. Everybody was nervous about the pandemic, and Vresh came over one day and he's like, "Hey, you want to start a podcast?" And our friend Tom was with us, and he's like, "What are you apes going to talk about?" And then we were like, "Well, we got a name now, so now we have to do it."
Yeah. Yeah. It's been an interesting few months. I mean, we started this business originally, for media and events. Little plug. We started as originally an events business, and that was the plan in February.
Yeah.
We were planning for some big, we had a couple of big marquee events lined up, and buy-ins from education institutions locally, and all of a sudden, here we are, March 15th, it's lockdown, and all hopes of an events company actually succeeding kind of went down the toilet pretty quick. And I mean, we were just kind of, we're a little dejected with the amount of rejection we were getting on the media side, because we were trying to bring, social media into the construction industry, specifically on the contractor side. Because I know, something that we've always talked about, privately, not just, Jeff and myself, but anybody really in the industry is how far behind the construction industry is on a lot of, new digital media trends, and being able to leverage that to be successful in the real world. And I think the construction's been kind of an old school industry for a long time, but that is changing with the advent of the new generation that's coming into it.
Well, I don't know. I kind of liked getting the mail outs that helped, and it was great to start fires in your backyard. Like,
hey, yeah, see, and that's kind of exactly what's happening, right? And that was a key piece for us to say, hey, we can target this. We have a very good network in the business. People understand and trust us. I mean, you said we were manufacturers, reps, Justin. You can call a spade a spade. We were sleazy salesmen back in the day. Maybe not so sleazy, but
yeah.
But our focus.
I won't take that personally.
But I think the focus for our business was bringing construction into the 21st century. That's been the philosophy that we've operated on. And, the four aspects of our four media business, one was, of course, the events that we started with. One was we wanted to be able to film and do like actual media production for organizations. How often is it that somebody invests $500 million in $100 million in a project, but nobody tracks the progress, nobody actually documents it and spotlights and profiles these marquee legacy projects, especially when they're using new technology or new equipment or new methodologies to do stuff. And you just get, all of a sudden it's like, hey, you get a photo in a brochure that says case study on it, as opposed to, you know, a 5 or 10 minute video with all of the stakeholders involved. So that was a focus for us, you know, doing project profiles and spotlight.
But I think also, to elaborate on that more, is as we were both manufacturers reps, one of the things, and I'm sure you're probably finding out now, is that you get all this cool technology and all these differentials that separate you from the market, and nobody knows about it. Nobody knows what the benefits are. Nobody hears that other people are actually using it and it's being successful and it's saving them money. You go into meetings with engineers and it's like you've just invented the wheel and they don't even know what to make of it. And they're like, you know what? That scares us.
Yeah.
We're going to just keep using this square wheel because we know it drags well.
Yes.
Right. And that was really troublesome to me. Our industry in North America, compared to a lot of other countries in the world, is already 15 to 25 years behind the times. When you go into European buildings that are 800, 900, 1,000 years old, and you can easily renovate it from a office to a residential place because of the component use, it's kind of embarrassing. And for us, a lot of it is we can change that. We can get more presence on this new technology. We can start putting more efficient systems together, and there can actually be video data and people that are reachable in order to ask questions and get involved in actually propelling us into a more comfortable lifestyle.
I mean, there's a grand plan.
With a lower greenhouse effect.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, like that's the grand plan is information. Right. And I think that that's the age we live in. If you want to call industrial revolution, you know, technological revolution seems a little vague to me. I think we're in the information revolution really here. And it's the information is out there, and we've depended on face-to-face contact for way too long in the construction industry to actually spread information, especially if it's something as simple as, you know, clean water, right? Like, what do people know about that in our own neighborhoods? Do you know where your water comes from, how it gets there? Like, what are the processes that are involved? Nobody knows, right? And nobody's really interested because those things aren't made top of mind. People are more worried about what's the hottest restaurant in town or who's this Instagram model I need to follow. Like, that's really what people are worried about, right? Like,
actually, I don't agree with that.
No,
they're very concerned with it when something goes drastically wrong, and then they care.
It's more about how it looks, you know, in a lot of cases, than how it actually performs.
Yes,
absolutely.
You know, I would say to most people, if we're talking about, say, for example, a household fixture or something, you know, so when we're talking about in our world, in our industry that I'm in, it's pretty much really, it's a lot of it's unseen, right? It's underground or it's inside a water or wastewater treatment plant. And, you know, these types of things, you know, it should be important for people to know because they pay taxes, you pay water bills. You know, you should know about products that are out there that can improve your life and the environment.
Well, even to the technology of putting that stuff, like implementing new systems, right? Like, there's so many things that people are stuck in the years past of, okay, in order to do this, I've got to dig these massive trenches. I have to do all this extra work because that's what they did, or that's what their uncle did on the farm.
Yep.
Right. Like, God forbid other technologies to support that has come into play as well. Right.
Right.
So
no, I totally get what you guys are doing. And it's when we caught up, you know, when you guys came across my radar and went, oh, geez, I know these guys. And you know, we chatted briefly on the phone. You kind of mentioned trade shows. And I think that's part of 4ME was to do events. And I think you had mentioned something about
reinventing.
Yeah, like a boutique sort of purposeful trade show rather than the ones that I've been attending up until pandemic hit. I have to say, a lot of the trade shows I've been to, hopefully some of my friends in the trade show world aren't going to be too upset by this, but really a lot of the trade shows we attend are, you know, the usual sales guys, you know, talking to each other, drinking afterwards, and very little productivity happens, I find, anyway.
And you know, it's funny, as like working for a manufacturer, we spent probably six figures going to trade shows.
I mean, when you're sending equipment, and especially if it's like a little larger equipment that you got to ship and
But
crates,
it's
and
also
then
the
fees
shutdown
and
of the business because all of your outside or territory salespeople are there attending the show for the three customers that they've invited, right?
Yeah.
Or for the three customers that actually are going there from the 200 that they've invited.
I mean, there's that, but then there's also the flip side of that is that if you don't go, you don't really like. There's no business lost, but like there's chatter in the industry. And
that's true. There's a little asterisk beside your,
they're not here this year. Like, what's going on? Like, this manufacturer that it becomes this thing where the industry pressure, the internal peer pressure of the industry makes you have to spend 40, 50, 60, $100,000 on these useless. I'll say it. They're useless trade. I have never been to a trade show and walked.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but
I mean, it's nice if you're really, really interested in going to learn. Like, there are those, students.
Well,
and
no, but
old school guys
I would say that for like a trade show down in Vegas or Chicago or Florida, there's usually I don't even know how many vendors are there.
Thousands.
But like we'll take our shifts working our booth, and then like I've always been interested in progress of this industry. So I'll walk around and see what's new, and usually I see 2 or 3 booths that are interesting. Seeing these hydronic or solar panels for water coming out of Norway. And I'm like, oh, can we use these here? Well, not yet. We're working on the patent. We've been using it for 15 years. And I'm like, oh, okay. But there's nothing tangible from that. So part of what we wanted to do was get away from that style of trade show where really let's call it out that it's just basically a social event. We all know about going to the takeout party, and we all know about like who's serving this beer, like people have barbecue, whatever. We all know about that. That's what people talk about. Oh, are you going to go to that show? I'll see you there.
Because it's not about the trade show. It's
not about the trade show
or whatever. And I think that's what we're trying to establish. So we did a couple of events in our previous lives where we brought in select, speakers. And it's like, why don't we do this the way tech does it? Right? Like, the tech industry is amazing at doing large conventions and conferences, like where they have keynote speakers and like people talking about interesting things, and those rooms are full. Even now, you go to a trade show, where are all the people? They're at the stage. Nobody's walking the show. They're all watching the new code regulations or how to do passive house or whatever the speakers are talking about. Why not have events and information, a collaborative information session around that, as opposed to it being me having to spend $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 so that to talk to nobody over the course of 3 days, right? And I think that I feel like a lot of these,
but also keep in mind that it wasn't that you're not talking to anybody. It's you could talk to 5,000 people, but it's not measurable, right? There's no follow-up after it. There's no, like, very few companies actually have a follow-up procedure after.
I mean, I used to implement a follow-up procedure in when I used to do trade shows. It's like collect a name and you have the scanner or whatever the system is. But at the same time, I find that the key thing is that people that come to trade shows are often just there to learn. Not a lot of them are there to buy, and not a lot of them make purchasing decisions based on the conversations they have in there. So it's all up to you, up to the salesperson to follow up. Right? Because it's not only you have to spend money to be there, to talk to mostly people you already know, right? And then you have to follow up and create more. Anyway, so like my thing is that I think it can be done extremely better. I think it can be done more effectively. I think it should be done on a smaller scale. And that was the primary purpose of our business, was to create that. And when that kind of fell through and we knew that that wasn't really going to be an eventuality, we kind of pivoted to we were kind of bored, and we said, hey, we're constantly angry about stuff that's going on in the industry. And we just talk to ourselves, or we talk in these little water cooler conversations outside. It's like, hey, let's just, get on a microphone and talk about it. And it's like, I know I definitely, fly off the handle a lot, and I say things very, very that I believe, because those are my experiences. I mean, when I say something like, I think trade shows are useless, that's what I believe, because that's my experience. And I go over and above the average person when it comes to that in terms of like follow-up and whatnot. So, our perspectives are something that we're trying to share when it comes to, Talking Apes. On the For Media side, we're trying to help people, shout from the rooftops about this projects that they're working on, give them a soapbox to be able to shine. And then the other aspect of our business, of the events, the media production, the podcast, and the last one is our digital marketing. So, we're trying to harness the power.
Well, I
of
think we
social
should
media.
elaborate a little bit more on the trade show.
Yes.
What our idea actually was to have a maximum of about 20 vendors there, and have it over a 1 or 2 day period, but actually show the products that are complementary of each other. So we're actually talking about entire systems, right? Not just, okay, I'm displaying this widget. Okay, this is what this widget does, right? What we wanted to do was have it so that we explained actually like the water coming through the pipe, going through the plant, going through the filtration system. In certain areas, we have to deal with this, and this issue. So this is now the filtration side of things, right? Now we have to get into the distribution side. So now we're going to marry it with these pumps. We're going to marry it with, we have to get into these faucets, and this is what level of responsibility you're responsible for at your home once we get it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds a little bit more curated and sort of flowing, right? That, the way you describe it.
Well, and then that way we can actually take the people who have had those systems done as a guest speaker of, this was the process, this is what hindered us, this is what was really great about this. And then we're actually talking to an audience that is focused, engineers, contractors that are involved in that segment of business. Like when you talk about Division 15 is massive. Like you really want a boiler guy coming to learn about how to do, infrastructure on groundwater.
Right. Yeah. So I could see that working so much better than, where I'm at right now. And I will say that to me, the trade shows that we're attending right now, there's some leads that come out of it. There's some good interactions that happen. There's a little bit of, we'll say, customer entertainment that goes on, of course, but to have something that can really be focused on the features and benefits of the product that solves issues. So for example, with our ProFlare product line, if you were to do something that was, say, focused around chemical feed in water treatment, we can talk about the issues with how sodium hypochlorite attacks solvent weld connections, ferric chloride does the same, and how our new system of ProFlare eliminates those leaks. And right now we talk about it with municipal end users. And a lot of them, as soon as they see it, like, yes, we want that, we need this solves a problem. But how do you get in front of, 10,000 water plants in the province of Ontario, however many there are, there's a lot, in little municipalities. And how do you get in front of every engineering firm that, wants to provide something that's safe, that's sort of the industry standard, and that they know the municipality will agree to because it's used everywhere. So having a trade show that's very specific, I could see it, working so much better than what we're doing right now.
Well, you have to think about it as well, is how many people in a company are actually allowed, given authorization to expense going to a trade show, right? Because they don't know what you're getting out of it. It's a crap every time you go.
Yeah. And especially, with a startup, right? Say you've got something new that you've connected, either you've manufactured yourself in Canada or it's from Europe or something that really is state of the art. It's a better product, but hey, you're a startup. You don't have 40 G's to drop on a booth in some fancy trade show, right? So
and you say like Ontario, but now if you think about something that's such a specific topic that is very technical, now you start expanding your reach into people from BC coming to Ontario, people from Quebec coming over, right? And especially I think today now especially is like the Canadian aspect, right? as a Canadian company, we often don't have the marketing dollars to really spend to compete with the American companies that end up coming in and taking over our market. We did a podcast that was solely based on Canadian products, and a lot of people didn't comment. They actually phoned us and they're like, we've never thought about it that way. We've never thought about saying, okay, in order for us to support Canadian products, it might cost us 5% more. It might cost us 7% more. But it might actually save us that money because it's coming from Canada. We don't have to worry about borders. We don't have to worry about anything. We can get our product here. And to be honest with you, we'd rather support Canadian, even if it costs us 5%.
The money goes back into the economy anyway. And it's like, I feel like there's a big, made in USA sentiment. There's not as big of a made in Canada sentiment. Like that's
No.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why Canadian companies absolutely refuse to say made in Canada, because then they can't sell in the US.
Are you going to get all existential here, or is it going to be?
No.
Well, I'll be quiet.
No. It honestly, because the pride that Americans have in America, like we all know it. We all see the flags going and see people crying when they're singing their anthem and stuff like that. It's amazing what they've built.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist here.
Yeah. So with us, if we put the big made in Canada, the Americans won't buy it. Right? If it comes down to buying an American product or a made in Canada product, so all the Canadian companies, what they end up doing is doing this made in North America. Right. And then that way the kind of like the North is really small and the America is large.
If your business is exporting, I wouldn't disagree with that for sure. But if you're trying to target more Canadian B2B companies to use your product, you have a cost disadvantage, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 features that are far superior than what's the standard on the market. Yes, you're, like you mentioned, 10, 15% more expensive. How do you help a contractor who wants to support a Canadian company versus, when they're competing in a marketplace where their competition is buying the low cost product? Like, how do you guys support that?
Well, so that's where we come down to education. Like if it's an apples to apples product, it definitely is tough. We're definitely like relying on the pro Canada aspect, right? If it's a product that has some differences, right? Like the Pro Flare, if it has that difference, and it's especially if it's a government project, I don't think there's any other alternative but Canadian first.
That's a huge item. I think that the unfortunate thing is that the government doesn't even care about whether stuff is made in Canada or not. And that should be a mandate. It's like, if there's a Canadian product for that and equal, there should be an allowance of like 15 to 20% of like, we will support Canadian, because why should the government not? And then that's another thing that, bothers us is that, the Canadian government doing municipal work for taxpayers, you're going to buy American or German or Korean or Japanese product to do so. What doesn't add up here?
Like we have 33 million investors that would rather keep their money at home.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a recent citizen of Canada, and it's like, to me, I would rather support, I would pay 15% more to have something that's made locally. 15%. I mean, there's a ceiling to that. I mean, if it's double or triple, then
we just had to redo our house, and that was my big thing was we had seen Canadian products, and they weren't as big. They didn't have the power. It cost me 25% more to do the house, but especially now, like pandemic era, that's a massive thing for me. We can afford to pay that extra 25%. It was a couple of grand more. To me, there was no question about it.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. Is if you can afford, the X product, you should be able to afford maybe 10% more. Otherwise, you're playing too close with your budget. right? You're playing it too tight and you don't have room for moving around. I think that's just poor budgeting on any part. And I think that, looking at it from a capitalistic point of view, though, it's like, hey, I understand. You want to make a profit, that's fine, that's on you. It's like, hey, if something is 10% cheaper, you didn't get to be this multi-million-dollar company without, looking for avenues to save money here and there. But yeah, the government, like that just is,
Yeah.
astounding that the government doesn't even have that sentiment and programs to help, because I know for a fact that, government projects are usually the ones that go at the cheapest, right? Like they want the best product, but they'll source as many, they have to source 4 or 5 alternatives.
Well,
right?
yeah, the government projects are funny because if I'm probably not letting anything out of the bag with this comment, everybody knows to quote a government project at dead cost because you're going to make up for it on all of the add-ons and all of the change orders and everything. And so that's where I find it funny. But how are you finding it as a Canadian manufacturer trying to get involved? Are you seeing anything that really says, no, we're going after Canadian products? Like, have you seen that come up at all?
A little bit. I mean, I would say, not so much now. Like as a Canadian manufacturer, we're dealing business to business. So we sell through wholesale distribution, and we sell a little bit direct to municipalities for more industrial products. So we haven't really seen the specific demand for a Canadian made product. But going back to when I was in the wholesale world, certainly I had contractors that preferred Canadian manufactured products. I can think of a handful, and this is in Cranbrook, East Kootenays. There is a handful of contractors that, when given the choice between a Canadian made product and some other brand, they'd go for the Canadian made product. And that was pretty cool to see. Our company does a lot of cool things. We invented the PVC inspection chamber. A lot of people don't know that. One of our founders invented that product. We manufacture everything in-house in Surrey, British Columbia, as well as in Barrie, Ontario. And it's really eye-opening, some of the things too, like even from a policy standpoint, where I interviewed someone, Barbara Robinson, back in the second episode. We talked all about inflow and infiltration, and the amount of money is staggering that gets thrown into the gutter, thrown into the sewer to be specific, that can be preventable. It's totally preventable by using better products and change the way we do things. And it's like, how do we get this information out there faster, and change our ways?
Yeah, and so that was the inspiration of the trade shows. Trust me, like the last thing I wanted to do was be like, hey, let's get into trade shows. They're killing it.
I mean, but the crazy thing though is that in terms of money, they are killing it. These associations that are all like, basically
old boys clubs,
associations that are just making hundreds of millions of dollars off of trade show fees and whatnot. I mean, they have costs, of course, but at the same time, it's like it's not a bad business because people want to show their product off. It's just bringing a captive, attentive, retentive audience that can actually have some kind of output out of that.
Personally don't think that trade shows, if your business is over 25 years old, you should attend a trade show as a company.
That's a long time. I'd say 10 years.
No, but like really, I do agree. Like the younger the company is, the better, because that's usually where you're coming out with problem solving ideas, right? Like you've seen something that's not in the industry, you've come up with a solution, and a trade show is about getting that attention.
Yeah.
For the companies who are just attending because it's the expectation that you have to show up just to be seen, I think it's a waste of their time. I think it's a waste of all of the industry's time, because as sales reps, that was our job, was to go out and keep our customers updated with our products. We were already established. We had a relationship, right? So what are we doing? Like if they're going to the trade show and that's the first time they're seeing your new product, fire that sales rep, fire the agency. Like, you've got somebody that's not doing their job.
Yeah.
But for the innovators, that's where you're really trying to collectively get those products, those things that are solving issues. That's what trade shows are for. It's not like the social aspect. Of course, you're going to go out with your colleagues or customers at night and have drinks and dinner and whatever. But the intention of being there and why people often don't allow salespeople to expense the trip unless they're the most senior staff or the students that can't afford to go there. Like, what's going to actually change our industry is have those smaller shows where we're showing innovation, where we're showing the future technologies and how it can actually marry up. And that will propel our older companies to stay ahead of the curve and keep pushing the line, right?
And it's almost like you have to have them be kind of like invite only, specific, tailored audiences where you go out there and, kind of canvas people to come. It's like, hey, we want, we're trying to get this off the ground. And this whole theme, this is a vein that runs through our entire business philosophy. We're trying to change the way people think and work within the construction industry. It's, hey, we just take some of this stuff for granted and we don't ask questions because everybody's done it. And, if I don't do it, everyone's going to think something. It's just like this weird form of industry peer pressure that it just exists across the board, whether it's something as simple as a trade show or something as complex and hush as a rebate, right? Like it's from here to there, there's this, like, I got to do it because everybody's doing it. Right. And if I don't do it, I'll kind of be vilified and I'll be put out as an outcast and they won't see me as a legitimate player in this industry. And that is where, I'm sure every industry has traits like this, but it's, the construction industry is something that affects everybody. Every single person is affected by this.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Maybe, big banking doesn't affect everybody. Maybe it doesn't. Right? It's not, maybe not everyone owns a home or maybe not everybody. So, but construction, you live somewhere, yeah, you're affected. Yeah. Right.
I guess it's time for the disruptors to start coming in and, why use a shovel when you've got a tractor, right?
Yeah. I think that's really what we're trying to do. I mean, trade shows is an aspect, and that's something that we don't really see happening for the next probably couple of years. We've got some, and it gives us time to kind of think of some cool ideas and ways to do things, and that's good. But our focus now really is using the platform that we do have, which is social media, and we think that social media is definitely the vehicle that's going to help people launch ideas, launch businesses, launch innovative kind of.
Well, just to put it out there, Proline, you guys use a professional media company, correct?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And how have you found the difference in business, like just having somebody that's committed to doing that?
Yeah, it's been terrific in the sense that we're, like you guys mentioned, we're in an industry that traditionally is traditional. Can I say that? So I feel like maybe we're a bit ahead of the curve, or maybe we're right on it, but I feel like we're doing things a bit differently. And we have this great company that's producing these excellent products that are innovative, that solve problems, that are sustainable, that last longer, that protect water resources. And these are all things that the younger generation are interested in. But how do we get that message out there? How do we talk to people, not just the products, but also just lifting up our communities, our country? How do we get that information, that message out there? And so with social media, with the company that we hired, it's been great, and we're hitting those audiences now, and that's why it's so great to have you guys on the show and kind of someone else who's been bold and daring enough to start a company that's like-minded, doing the same kinds of things. And hopefully that you guys are going to be able to help companies grow, and especially ones that are keen to protect water resources and a sustainable environment.
Absolutely. I think a big part of our focus is trying to bring, new technology, new systems, new ideas out there. And some of these ideas, they're new to us, but they're not new. They've been like something we had, folks from Passive House, Alberta, people that have built and been a part of some of the first passive home or passive building projects in the province. I mean, talking to them, we learned, I mean, passive as a concept has been around for over 30 years, and before it was a concept, has been used as a building technique for over 60 years. Right?
Developed in Canada.
Apparently, and we learned that it was first kind of developed
Perfected
in
in Germany, apparently.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, that's kind of the goal for us, is to say some of these things are there, but they're just subsurface. Let's just talk about it and push it above, right? And that's the way, I mean, I see things. I know, and I go about it a very different way from Jeff. I mean, Jeff is more kind of, more, let's put it this way. Jeff is professional about it. I'm very, I it's off this, whatever. Yeah. What's the terminology? It's off the cuff. It's
Staff show.
You're Lennon and he's McCartney.
I mean, one of our segments. So we have our regular.
I walk around with a top hat and a whip just to keep him in line.
and I mean, one of the segments, I mean, our podcast, Talking Apes, is primarily where we talk to influencers and people in the industry that are doing interesting things. Or just to kind of talk about, the life of somebody who is a contractor, a, wholesaler, like what is that life like? The other side is, for us, there's stuff that annoys us. There's stuff that bothers us. I honestly just wanted to yell for 20 minutes. And Jeff's just kind of like, well, okay, maybe this is that. Okay, well, what about this? So,
well, what I was trying to actually do was not just have it as a rant. The whole point of what we're trying to do is a solution base. So when somebody poses a problem, I like to give the other side of the story. I don't ever like to just be like, oh, we're right because we can yell louder than the other.
Right. Yeah.
What I think
to win an argument, just be louder than the next guy.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the point of having it is trying to understand the other position, right? Why did they make that choice? What agility are they trying to do? All major companies have had very smart people sit around a round table and come to a conclusion of why we think this is a good idea. It's only hindsight that tells us if it was a good idea or not, right? Implementation and doing it. So the rants are great, but I think it's understanding why that round table came in, right? Why that decision was made to do something. But I think, like what you're saying about getting to the younger audience is through social media. My wife still hates going on drives with me through Vancouver and Calgary because I'm like, oh, I built that building. Oh, I did that. Yeah. And when we see advertising in a major aspect, whether it's online or, I mean, the coolest thing now with all these Netflix and all these places coming up is that they're doing all these ads and it's like, hey, I use that company on that screen back there, right? And now we're yelling at the TV, so our wife hates watching TV with us now, right? But it's that social media where you're really proud of being in partnership with somebody, or you're really proud of owning something, buying something that's a new technology,
building something.
How many people buy a brand new car and they sit in the driveway with all their neighbors and they're like staring at the engine and nobody knows what they're looking at, but it's the coolest thing they've seen.
Yeah. And I think that's become this, where you share your life, you share, I mean, I know I do, I share, certain aspects of my life to, general public, I guess, if you want to call it that. But there's this pride that comes with, being someone in the construction industry, whether it's as simple as, hey, I sold a product that was then installed on the site, and, where you point at it and say, hey, we've got, we supplied a lot of product for this, or it's you were a foreman or a technician on site installing something. So, and that pride really kind of starts and ends at that single connection step. And I think that's where we're build the pride for everybody in that supply chain, right from the owner, architect who designed, to the engineer who spec'd specific product, to the general contractor, to the individual contractor, to the subcontractor. Whoever in that chain has the resources to be able to share it or wants someone else to take care of that for them, it's you take 1 million pictures a day on your phone if you wanted to. It's like what you do with that photo, those photos or that content and those videos that matters. And that's where social media is this low-hanging fruit of a tool where all you really need to do is be there. Be there, have some sort of strategy, have an idea of how you want your business or your work or your ideas or your personal brand even to work. And I find that contractors that are doing this and sharing their successes on
not just contractors, companies in
companies in general, it's not just contractors as well. Like, I mean, manufacturers have jumped on it a little bit earlier because they see the sales ability of the tools,
the instant messaging,
all of that stuff, right? And the ability to share new products. But it's, if you're already in the market selling something, social media is seen as an is an arm of that. So the way we see it is that contractors are out there, really doing a ton of great work, but they take photos and they show it to potential clients. But wouldn't it be nice for them to have a portfolio that's available without them having to worry about it, and without them having to think about, I got to put this on my website? No, it's like your Facebook account or your LinkedIn account or your Instagram account or your Twitter, whatever it is, your Pinterest. This is an opportunity. We live in an age where really people shouldn't say, I don't know much about you or your business, right? That's where we live in, because if they say that means you haven't done your job in letting them know. And that's where we come in with the final aspect of our business, which is, we serve as social media and digital marketing consultants to contractors, because let's be honest, they know they got to be there. They know it's important. They take enough pictures and photos, but they don't really have the time to sit and write hashtags and put emojis on a photo and like time it right so that it's the right time of day and make sure that they're on track with strategy and like there's a consistent brand that's being portrayed, and then being consistent with it, because every contractor is realize that social media is important. Every person in the construction industry has realized, and I'm not just talking about like mechanical contractor or whatever. It's like everyone from a drywaller to a landscaper to a painter to if you have a service to sell, like, you may have realized the importance of social media.
Well, let's put this out there.
Yeah.
If contractors were good at social media, they'd probably be better at office work.
Yeah. Right.
For sure. Like they're outside doing things, manual labor, and
or even managing people that do manual labor.
And that's what they're good at.
Yeah. And I see it, I see the value that you guys can bring to a contractor who's good with his hands, who has a great business, helping people. Maybe he wants to diversify, or he wants to distinguish themselves against the competition with the superior product that they use and installations that they're doing. I'd take it a step further. If you guys can connect sort of the dots between that and the end user and the engineering firm, so that that contractor now has an edge when they want to do something better that the end user wants, it's going to last longer. And now the engineer is going to say, yeah, that's what we should use. The contractor's happy, everyone's happy in between.
Yeah. Well, let's like for you, Justin, is it better for you to get a carload full of people together and go to all of the sites that you've done? Or is it better for you to have project profiles and a visual representation of what you're doing, where you can show the most complex parts that you're probably not allowed into in these water plants or stuff like that? Like,
yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. For sure, it's better to not have the carload to bring the information out there. And it's a bit more challenging. We're not a contractor. We're supplying the hard parts that we've manufactured and put together. And we're relying on the end user and or the contractor to supply us with the feedback about, images, video, etc. But, if you guys are helping out that contractor, then all the information's getting out there, and I think it'll really snowball, right? Like that's the idea.
That's what we were trying to do, is get it so that like the contractors really commit to the brand, right? So if they commit to the brand, then they're doing themselves justice in selling their company, but now they're actually in a partnership with the manufacturer, and they're actually doing the advertising and the recognition for that manufacturer as well, right? And that manufacturer now is going to probably go above and beyond to really help. Not saying that we don't already go and work with them, but if you've got a contractor that's really putting their
third-party credibility is huge.
That's
right?
that's the most important thing.
The
Right.
referral, when we talk about like referrals, like I mean, the industry always talks. The people that are installers, that are purchasers of products, they always communicate as to what's good, what's not. Because the question is, as a salesperson, you've got a new item, a new widget, a new gadget. It's like, oh, who else is using it? Well, that question can be easily answered because everybody's on social media, everyone's following one another. All the industry on a regional scale are all connected. The program and the business model that we've developed for some of our clients that maybe have resource restrictions and limitations, like financial limitations and not being able to spend as much. It's like, hey, we have a very good pool of manufacturers that are interested in promoting their brand. Are any of these your preferred manufacturers? Oh yeah, I really love those guys. I use that. I don't really like that. So okay, so maybe if we introduce you to them, they might be interested in almost financing your marketing efforts as long as they're a part of that effort, right? Like, as long as their brand and their message and their organization is a part of your messaging, at least let's say 60% of the time, because they want you to grow your business outside of their brand, but they also want to make sure that, if they're supporting you financially, they get, something in return as well, because that's they're investing in you, their partner who's bought all this product from them and supported their business for this many years. And this is their way of giving back, but also getting something in return. So there's like a win-win situation that we've tried to create. It's almost this affiliate digital marketing program within the construction industry. It's kind of new, and whenever we kind of explain this to a contractor and say, hey, this is the plan, this is the program, and this is the cost, and they go, well, I can't really afford that. Then it's like, oh, but wait, there's more. Right? Like that's kind of the lead in. It's like, if this is something that is truly out of your means, then absolutely it's something that we can bring to our clients and make sure it's accessible, because that's the key thing, is making social media accessible.
Cool. Well, Vresh and Jeff, I think we've probably gone over time. It's been really interesting chatting with you guys. I'm happy with the stuff that you're doing. I think it's positive. It's good for the industry. We won't get into it now, but one last thing I'll mention is the rant about rebates was daring, and I appreciated it, but we can't talk about that. So yeah, guys, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being a part of the Clean Water series, and we hope to keep in touch with you.
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Awesome. Cheers. We'll look forward to having you on Talking Apes soon.
Sounds great.
Cheers.
Take care, guys.
Yeah.